Gaming backlogs are a thing that every single one of us has to deal with, and it will always be a looming presence that will never stop haunting you, especially after dirty Steam sales, selling games for stupidly low prices, games that, maybe you'll play at some point in the next 5 years. For the past few months, I've been conquering my backlog, but that hasn't been enough to get through it, so this time, I'm gonna be destroying my backlog, which means I'm gonna be playing more games, with more explosions, with more tits, more violence. Oh yeah, get excited, fellas. Okay, let's see here. What's the first game on the list? Okay, so I hate to admit this, but it's been quite a while since I started scripting this backlog video. I started writing it before Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth had come out, and since then, well, it's actually come out, and I've 100%ed it. I've been a very busy guy. Regardless, this is about Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, which is probably the longest game title ever. This game is amazing, and the fact it's a quote-unquote side Yakuza game is honestly insane to me. Not only does it have some of the absolute best real-time combat in the series, I would honestly put it up there with Lost Judgment in terms of its quality. It also has an incredible story, and it's what Yakuza 6 should have been. This shit is the real send-off Kiryu deserved. I know he's in Infinite Wealth, but Gaiden feels like his proper send-off. For a side game, there's a lot of new things here, like the new agent fighting style, which Kiryu learnt from being in the Daidoji faction, who aren't a Yakuza family. They're instead some weird secret organization who are helping Kiryu wipe his face from the earth and keep him hidden. With this fighting style, you get secret agent gadgets that are, well, about as over the top as you can imagine for a Yakuza game. My personal favorite is the exploding cigarette. If you can pull the timing off with this in a crowd of enemies, it makes you feel so cool. Oh, and for the first time in the series, you can actually customize the main character. That's right, you can dress up Kiryu. In my playthrough, I dressed him up as a middle-aged Yorkshireman who's trying to dress younger than he actually is. And I kept this style for the entire game. It was awesome. Gaiden doesn't outstay its welcome either. It ends just at the right time, taking around 10 hours to finish with only 5 chapters. It means there's no filler sections that just pad out the game, which I hate to admit is a huge problem with a lot of the Yakuza games. Even Infinite Wealth has that problem, forcing you into the Dondoko Island minigame a few hours into it. Gaiden has none of that, but despite this, it still doesn't have a small amount of side content. All of the side content you'd expect for a Yakuza game is here, and just to the same amount of quality, especially with its sub-stories. In fact, I think this game has some of the best in the series. There's one where you meet Kaito from the Judgment games, and you can actually fight him as Kiryu. During this whole sub-story, I was so happy seeing my boy. It also confirms that Kiryu is canonically stronger than Kaito, and, well, that's only because he can Tiger Drop. There's even some new side content here, like the Hostess minigames, which are in live action for some reason. Like, they actually hired actors for this shit to just talk into a camera and pretend they're talking to Kiryu. It's also probably why the file size is 87 gigabytes. About 50 gigabytes of that is uncompressed Hostess minigame footage, I guarantee you. Oh god, I just realized I haven't even mentioned the arena yet, which could be its own entire game in itself. Listen, just play Gaiden, especially if you're a Yakuza fan. If you aren't yet, and you want to get into the series, play 0, Kiwami, Kiwami 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Like a Dragon first. Oh yeah, we got another VR game. Expect way more to be on these backlog videos because I aim to beat at least one every month, so there'll always be one in these videos. So yeah, Vertigo. Well, I should really be calling it Vertigo Remastered, even though I could not find any game called Vertigo beforehand, so I have no idea why it's called Vertigo Remastered. Vertigo Remastered at a first glance looks kinda like arse, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It looks like shit at times. But don't let any of that visual graphic fidelity shit fool you, because this was some of the most fun I've had in 3 hours. Vertigo is heavily inspired by Half-Life and Portal. It's like a nice combination of the two, which is perfect considering the fact I played Vertigo hot off the heels of Half-Life Alyx, so I was craving more of the same shit, and Vertigo did not disappoint. In the game, you're some random ass woman who was unfortunately teleported to some strange facility in an unknown place. This is where the Half-Life inspiration comes in, as the facility has gone to complete shit. The security is on the fritz attempting to kill you on sight, along with alien specimens engines trying to do the exact same thing. Now, I would tell you more about the story if I gave a shit about it, which, I'm gonna be honest, I really didn't, but that didn't take away from the game at all. It was just a fun time from start to end, and it caught me by surprise. I feel kinda bad because during the introduction, I didn't have high hopes just because of how visually bad it looked, for a VR game especially, which was very shallow of me. I am very sorry, Vertigo. I severely underestimated you. There's a nice variety here. There are moments where you could be fighting a giant tar blob which you can pick up at the end and squeeze to death. This is Frank, and I made sure to keep him with me at all times during my playthrough. There's also a moment where you're shrunk down and have to explore an office for a keycard, and the enemies are just fucking massive, yet they still take the same amount of bullets. It's kind of weird. That variety is very consistent, and not just with its level design, but also with its gameplay. For starters, there's this portal device you get at the start where you can aim a line to a certain point and create a portal bubble that you have to physically put towards your head to teleport into. There's an energy sword which can deflect bullets and just looks really cool, and all the guns were an absolute blast to use. I don't really know what else to say about the game. It's just awesome. It's made me really excited to play the sequel, Vertigo 2, so keep an eye out for that in a future backlog video. Oh, and I played through the whole game on call with my friend Mr. Pungyong, who would laugh hysterically at the stupid shit I would do in VR. There's a lot of hype and praise around this game. People even consider it better than the Souls series and Bloodborne itself. Now, do you want to hear my opinion on it? Can I get a drum roll, please? I think it's great. I give it an 8 out of 10, but you're crazy if you think it's better than Dark Souls, never mind Bloodborne. Don't get me wrong, Lies of P is a great game, like I just said. The fact it's a retelling of the Pinocchio story set in a horrific Victorian setting with Souls-like combat is just, mwah, it's perfect. It's the best adaptation of Pinocchio ever created. Don't show me that stupid ass Disney shit, show me this! Horror Pinocchio, oh yeah! There's a lot of mechanics that revolve around the whole Pinocchio shit, like being able to choose whether or not to lie to characters around the world of crap. Depending on your choice, there can be repercussions that change quite a few outcomes to quests, incentivizing multiple playthroughs. Oh, and there's this cool mechanic with the weapons where you can switch the handle and tip of the weapon with any other one, which means you can mix and match so many combinations, again adding so much to the replay value. But despite all of this sounding so amazing and perfect, I personally never want to replay Lies of P again. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy my time with the game, like, a lot. I beat it in 3 days, I just couldn't put it down, but after a certain point, I started to get annoyed with it. The further I got into the game, the more I started to compare it to Dark Souls 2 of all things, especially with its enemy placement, because holy shit, some of these areas feel like they were just designed to be annoying and piss you off, rather than being a hurdle to overcome. Although something I can give to Lies of P, it's nowhere near as bad as it was in the Lords of the Fallen reboot. God, that game was horrific with its enemy placement. In Lies of P, the enemy placement ramps up more and more up until the final area of the game where it just gets absolutely ridiculous. To the point where the only viable way I could see of getting through was just running and not fighting anything. Although it's a pretty big one, that is my only issue with Lies of P. Everything else is phenomenal, especially the boss fights. Now, this is an area I just cannot compare to Dark Souls 2, as Lies of P takes the quality over quantity approach when it comes to its bosses. And whilst sure there are some stinky caca piece of shit bosses every now and then, the vast majority are standouts. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the level design, where Lies of P takes the Dark Souls 1 approach, which is what every game should do because Dark Souls 1's level design is masterful. So yeah, I finished Lies of P and I really enjoyed it. I don't want to play it ever again though. Maybe in a few years I might, I don't know. Okay, so we got another guest speaker, and this time it's my good friend TheRetroDen, who's gonna be talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Take it away.
Hello everyone, my name is TheRetroDen and my entire thing is getting platinum trophies and completing games. When I was asked by Proxidist to talk about a game I was playing from my own backlog, I thought of talking about Jack X, which is a game I have been playing for the past week or so, but that changed when Final Fantasy VII Rebirth launched on the 29th of February, bumping it up to number 1 on my to-beat list. Despite only having around 10 hours of the game, I can clearly say this game is an absolute improvement over the first one. The game feels more more fluid, the combat feels amazing as always, and the game has a huge amount of content. I mean, literally around 200 hours if you want to get the Platinum Trophy, which you know I'm going to grind for. This game is going to put a huge halt on my 2024 backlog, but I really don't mind since it is a very thorough experience that I can appreciate no matter how much time it takes me. One of the main reasons that led me to enjoying Final Fantasy VII Remake and wanting to play Rebirth is the sheer fact that the goober that is Tetsuya Nomura is behind the story, which leads to endless possibilities on how this game is going to end. I do need to give some credit to the gameplay because it is way more diverse than in Remake. I would like to explain how so, but my time here is short and it is really hard to explain if you haven't played the first one, so for now I'll leave you with some closing thoughts. You can play as Sephiroth, 10 out of 10, goodbye.
Jusant is a quaint little game created by the studio Don't Nod, who are known for the Life is Strange series. Wait a second, Life is Strange?
Now you're totally stuck in the retro zone. Sad face.
Okay, despite their track record, Jusant is a very nice game. It's the type of game you play when you're feeling a bit down after a long day of work and just want to play something that feels like sinking into a nice warm bubble bath. Jusant's main mechanic is its climbing, and that's it really. It knows what it is and it knows what it's trying to do, and you gotta respect that, because it does it really well. The climbing never becomes boring, as the terrain constantly changes the higher up you go, and yes, there are some struggles along the way, especially with the stamina system, which you need to be very aware of the longer the climb gets. It's all worth it in the end though when you get to see the breathtaking vistas and see how far you've come on your journey. It's just a nice experience. It's a short game that doesn't take too long to finish, and it was a very unique experience. Don't Nod kinda just dropped this one out of nowhere, and I know I haven't had that much to say about it, but I do recommend checking it out. It's definitely something you should experience for yourself, and I don't regret playing it. I didn't used to be a fighting game person. In fact, I used to despise them, and that all came down to a skill issue. I just didn't have the reflexes to pull off the combos you need to do to have any form of fighting chance against anyone. I tried Mortal Kombat 11 back in the day, and while I did put 20 hours into it, I just didn't understand it. It never clicked for me. That was until Mortal Kombat 1. Now, I know this is like one of the weakest in the series, and it lacks a lot of content compared to the other Mortal Kombat games, but I still had fun with it. I don't know if it's been dumbed down too, because I can actually pull off some of the combos. I played through the story of Mortal Kombat 1 and it was a good time. The main highlight is really the cutscenes, and they do not disappoint, with Johnny Cage being a highlight.
You should seriously consider becoming a screenwriter. What in the actual fuck?
Good evening, Johnny Cage.
Although Megan Fox was a very unfortunate casting.
Serena's right. Because of Quan Chi's magic, my realm's people are no longer poisoned by sunlight. We've finally escaped the shadows.
I tried some of the invasion mode, which wasn't too bad, but the fact this is the main place where you unlock cosmetics, well, I can imagine it would get insanely repetitive very quickly. Oh, and before I finish up, I just want to say that I actually played online for the first time in a fighting game, and I managed to make a Sub-Zero rage quit. Please write nice comments about my skills below. Thanks. I got 2 hours into this game and I dropped it. It was shit. So there you have it, that's 5 more games taken out of my backlog. You all know the drill. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below what games you've been playing from your backlog recently. Have you been enjoying the game, or do you want to just stop playing it because it's a stinky pile of shit that just isn't fun? Oh, and of course, keep writing those nice messages about my Mortal Kombat skills. Thanks.